Today I'd like to talk about your life, your being, your sense of being human and being part of divinity. Now, when people talk about God, they see a being who is all powerful, all knowing, omnipotent, omnipresent, has the ability to just do so many things that are just so great, so majestic, so godly, that we relegate ourselves as being subject to God, but not part of God. And I like to suggest something a little bit different. I like to suggest that we look at ourselves as being part of God, just as you would be considered part of a family. For example, my last name is Morrison. So anyone who is of me or I am of is a Morrison. And we have the same lineage. We have the same bloodline. We have the same gene pool. And so if you see someone who is of that family, you know that a lot of the same, let's say, personality, proclivities, intelligence, even shortcomings are part of that line. Well, it's the same thing with man. You see, God made man in his own image. So therefore, we are God's ourselves. Now, again, it doesn't mean that we're like a crazy image of God that people conjure up in their mind, someone who can, turn you into a monkey or make it rain or just know everything. It's not about doing magic. It's about doing things in the way God does. And if we look at ourselves as being gods on earth, then there's a few things we have to look at. One, that we are all equal. We are gods amongst other gods. We are all part of the same family. We all are made of the same stuff. Now, the substance of God is perfect, and man is not perfect. But what we know is that what we're trying to conjure up in our mind is not a sense of not being perfect in the sense that we're not complete. Let's put it this way. You see a child. Let's say the child is 3, 5 years old, whatever. The child is perfect. It has arms, legs, it has a body. It is perfect, but it is not complete. It is not matured. And so if we look at ourselves as being, in a sense, perfect, but not complete, then we're always trying to make ourselves into what we need to be as we mature through our lives. But we're not trying to change anything because we're not perfect, because we're broken. We're just trying to get more complete. It's like the society we live in today. There was a time when things were different, when people, let's say, they didn't deal with technology. They might have had certain mindsets. They might have been racist. They might have had slaves. They might have been at war. They might have done a lot of things that we look upon as being a little bit different, a little bit less humane or less civil. But in its time, for the people who lived at that time, it was perfect. It just wasn't complete. And if we move through our history now, we see people doing things, driving, talking on cell phones, and being connected to computers, and being all into technology. And right now, this is the way things should be. So my mindset is that if I am of God, that I am a piece of God, and we're all gods on earth, we should relate to each other as gods to gods, not as someone who is better or someone who is worse. So that really requires you to have a mindset that truly believes that you are part of God and that you are a God on earth. Now, what does that mean? It means that there are certain rules that you have to apply to your life in order to connect to God. You see, God is on the highest level. So if my thoughts are high, then I'm going to connect to God because the source, the power is there. And there's not a different source. The same source that is in God is the same source that I connect to. It's not a second source. It's the same source, but it's on a higher level. It means it takes high thoughts to reach that level. So if I go through my life and I'm thinking about malice or thinking about revenge or thinking thoughts that just don't align with the thoughts of God, then I'm not going to be able to connect to that source. Now, the thoughts of God, how do we substantiate that? How do we say, well, what are God's thoughts? Is it reading the Bible? Is it learning scripture? Is it prayer? It can be a lot of those things. But whenever you are thinking about something which is perfect, which is, let's say, above reproach, I believe you're thinking in the mind of God. An example. Let's say that you wanted to do a project or do anything, and you had doubt in your mind. Now, that doubt comes from your own humanity. There's no doubt in God. So if you were to just in your imagination, in that high thought realm, think of whatever you're trying to do and see no failure. You see yourself speaking properly. You see the things coming to fruition in an easy manner. You see all things the way that you would like them to be, and they're all perfect. Understand that the mind has the ability to conjure up perfection, and the subconscious cannot differentiate between what you imagine and what you actually experience. So when you imagine things in a perfect way, you're connecting with the mind of God. When I see myself talking to a coworker or to my spouse or to a sibling or someone, especially if I had an argument with this person, say we had some kind of dispute, but I see myself dealing with this person in a proper way, in a loving way, in a way that has connection, then I am conjuring up these images to create that reality for myself in the future. That's connecting with God. When I think of myself, I see myself as being healthy, in the right shape, and the right blood pressure, the right vision. Everything is just going perfectly. If I'm studying something, I see myself achieving it, see myself doing it. And as I continue to do these things in the reality of my life, I go with that image that God gave me of seeing myself do it in a perfect manner. And this is something that I really promote as a way of thinking. It's that if you want your life to be better, if you want your life to go in a way that is more of a divine experience, then spend time thinking and connecting to the thoughts of God, the mind of God, the source that is above that you reach out for. It's like, for example, on your cell phone, you know that if you don't have knowledge of something, you can Google it. And you can ask your cell phone, what is this or what is that? And it will give it to you based on the source which is already out there for anyone to connect to. But you have to ask for it. Well, the same thing with the mind of God. If you Google it, in a sense, if you connect to, if you ask God for those thoughts, for those visions that you can see, that you can walk in, things will work out better. And I know in my life I've experienced just miraculous things. I've been able to meet people who I just instinctively knew were going to be there to help me. People who were mean to me, for some reason they stopped being rude and impatient or just unkind, because I look at them as being equal. I don't look at anyone as being better than me. It could be a policeman, it could be a boss, it could be anyone. It doesn't make a difference. To me, I do this. Everyone is equal, and I speak to them as I say, a God speaking to other gods. We're all part of the same thing. We're all part of the same stuff. God made us in His image, and He wants us to be like Him. So that's where I am right now. I'm really, been doing this for a while, and it's amazing how I think about some skills that I have and things that I'm trying to even augment and grow with. I do feel that they're getting better because I'm thinking that God is assisting me in all that I'm trying to do. Now, there's another thing you have to understand. There are laws. There are laws that man has, dredged up, but there are also laws of dealing with God. If I want to conjure up in my mind an image of myself being healthy, okay, I have to do things in a healthy manner. I can't eat from just a sense of gluttony. I can't stay up night watching TV and saturate my mind with things that don't promote the wholeness and the wellness of my soul. I have to stay away from things that don't put me on that path to the higher level that I have already assigned in my mind is part of God. You see, I can't have thoughts of other women if I'm dealing with my personal, mate. I can't have thoughts of things going bad if I'm trying to do things in the right way. I can't have thoughts of things not going the way I want if I don't try to do things in a better way. Let's put it this way. If I have a thought of myself being healthy, then I, by definition, can't eat junk food. I can't gorge on things that are going to make my body bad because the mindset that I have puts me on one path, and the volition and the let's say the humanity or the carnal person puts me on the wrong path. So I strive to stick with the mind of God. Like example, this is something I did the other day. Um, I hadn't done pull-ups for a while. I used to do pull-ups all the time, but they kind of make my hands callous, so I stopped doing them. But I tried to do a pull-up, and so I was on the bar and I did 4. I did 4. And so what I did was I sat back and I closed my eyes and I imagined myself doing pull-ups, and I saw myself pulling my body up and counting 1, 2, 3, and I saw myself rising up, coming down, rising up, and knew that I had the ability to do it based on the fact that I had done it before, and it's something that I can see myself doing in my spirit. And I did 15. Now, to me, that's a pretty miraculous thing to go from 4 being totally wiped out to doing 15. And so that's the thing. If you can see it, if you can put your mind out there and have no doubt that what you're going to do will be accomplished, you can do it. And so I basically strive to make a list of things I want to do. Just anything, just a list of things, that skills or goals that I want to achieve, and I see myself doing these things in my spirit, and I'm asking God to connect me to his source so that I can think like him, I can do like him, and fully working. I don't have time to explain a whole lot of things, but just use that one example as something that's real, that I see myself being better, and my mind and body will create that reality for me, because that's what God is about. It's about creating. Anything that we have here, we have computers and we have cars and we have all kinds of things that didn't even exist 50 years ago, 100 years ago, things that people who lived 1,000 years ago could never even conceive of. But also, those people in their lifetime had things that people who were before them had no idea would be up in their life as well. So we're always moving forward. Every stage that we're in, we're perfect. We're just not complete. So let's think of ourselves as, again, not being broken, not being people who need to be fixed, but just as beings who are seeking to be more complete. To me, and I think it is so true, that is the mind of God. Thank you.